Okay, I have in the scene just a character, an empty character, there's nothing to him, and, well, a camera and a plane. There's nothing else here. So, what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring in Cinemachine, and I'm going to go with the free look, and I'm going to tell it to follow the player, and, you know, look at the player's head, or, you know, just make an empty under the player, either or, right? And I'm going to move that up, you know, like that. And then have the camera look at that. Now, we can add offsets to that. So we're not looking straight at his head because it looks weird in game if you do that, right? And you could easily do that just by, you know, moving this over if you wanted to. And controlling that by code. It's X position. The other thing you could do is now that you have this free look camera, I want Y inverted, X not inverted, and I don't want dampening bad, and we can add a little bit of an offset here on the tracked object. I'm going to scale it depending on where we are. And that will more or less give us this kind of feel to it, right? So if we're shooting, we're not quite shooting right at the back of our head.
Small to eat.
I'm making you noodles. And even that, I mean, it might be a little far over 0.5, might go a little less. Right, let's go 0.15 on the high, 0.25 on the mid, and 0.15. Which with this, you can also change this in play and it'll actually save it if you have it marked. Right, and even that, I mean, I can probably go a little higher. Alright, like have this thing move up a bit. I can go over a little more, right? So, I mean, not that this is that critical of a thing right now. So 0.2. Let's go 0.4, 0.2. Said, I don't like the dampening on these. I don't. And I have the simple follow with whirl up for the orbit mode. Right, so now we have that. It looks a little better. Right. So now that we have that, our character, if we want to do some sort of blend, okay, we don't need any logic on here. I'm gonna do this in root motion. And I'm going to come along and create a Animator controller. You can call it whatever you want. I'm just going to leave it as that. Put it in there. Put it into a player. So our player itself needs logic if we're going to control this. So we need, essentially, in our Animator, we're going to need three things to start with. We're going to need a vertical, and we're going to need a horizontal, and we need a rotation. So in here, in the logic portion, I can get axes. I'm just going to do the get axes, right? And we can say horizontal, call this an H, or call it horizontal, or call it whatever you want, really. Vertical, we'll call this one a V. And now I can set Animator float. I need two of those. I'm going to put these below. So we have vertical, which can be our vertical every frame. Our horizontal can be our H every frame. Now if we place it like that, if we watch this, as you see, we have those. Works pretty good. If you want to kind of slow those down, you can use these dampening times. And use like 0.1, 0.2 somewhere in there, and it'll actually, like, if I put it a little more to the extreme, you'll see the effect a little more clearly, I guess you could say. So if you watch how fast these go up now, right, they're much more gradual. So you can tweak those to however you want your movement to happen. It's entirely up to you. I'll put them at 0.3. So I'm going to start with a sub-state machine. And this can be, I'm going to go into this, and we're going to create a blend tree, and we're going to create two states. And I'm going to line them up like this. So this one's going to be strafe left, and this one's going to be strafe right, and this one's going to be move or locomotion. So we want to go strafe, we want to go into the strafe left if exit time off, if horizontal is greater, or no, is less, because we're doing left, than say negative 0.1, maybe 0.2, right? And we're going to go back to move if exit time conditions horizontal is greater than negative 0.1. So if we're below it or if we're above it, we're going to flop back and forth. And we're going to do the same thing on this side, only now to go right, we're going to go if horizontal is greater than 0.1, and over here we're going to do obviously the opposite if horizontal is less than 0.1. So now, without having any actual animations in there, if I'm pushing left and right, we're going in like this. Alright, so strafe left. Let's get some animations. Strafe left. And over here, let's do a strafe right. And if we go into the blend tree itself, we can say we want a 2D Cartesian. And we're going to do vertical and the rotation. Now we need a bunch of slots here. So I'm just going to zero all these off. So what do we need? We need an idle. So if we're not hitting anything, we're getting an idle. If we get a run forward, so if we have a vertical of 1, let's do the running. Let's do the run arcs. So if we have a 1 on, if we're running forward and we get a rotation of, you know, like that, we might have to change these up to like a 40 or something like that. We'll take a look at that in a minute. To which we could also have, say, a walk forward loop at 0.5. That might help blend things together, right? And then we could also use 0.5s, negative 0.5 and 0.5, which those would be walk, arch, loop left, walk, arch, loop right. So just based on that, right, we have our walking, or are running, and we can rotate him based off of this. And if we slow down, he goes into a walk to the point where he's just turning. Well, we don't have the turn yet, so we need to put that in there. Right. So if we aren't moving, so we're zeros, we have turn left, so that's a, we'll say -1, and we have a turn right, that's 0 with a 1. Now you can see he's got the turning. Oh, what did I put that in there for? I don't know why that was there. All right, and then we can go into our run, to a walk, to a turn. Nice and simple, right? So we have our idles, our run, with our rotations, our walks with rotations, just the basic rotations. The other thing we would need would be a walk backwards, which you can also use to walk forward and use this mirror button, or the time button, sorry. Right, so we have a walk backwards, but we also should have a run backwards as well. Run backwards loop, right? Because now we can have, you know, we're running. Right, and if we want, we could, I don't know, we could maybe try to duplicate those arts and do a mirror and a reverse time on those. I don't know. Depends how you have your animations. Now we have this beautiful little simple, if we hit play on that, we can see we can move, we strafe. Now we don't have any way to control the animation yet, but if I hit 1, he just starts turning, and if I hit forward, he starts doing that. Okay, so we have all the logic to do the strafing and the running back and forth. What about how do we get the turn and like that turn value to put into the animator? So the easiest thing to do.
Can I do my makeup?
No. Is I already have an empty. Is have an empty. Oh yeah, okay, I do have. Okay, so this is the camera look at. We'll give it proper names here so we don't get confused. So we have a new empty. We'll call this the compass. So all we need to do is get axis or get rotation. Preferably get negative rotation. This one's beautiful. It's on ecosystem of the compass. All right, and this could be, we need the Y rotation essentially, right? And now we could set animator float the rotation to be Y. So our controls are the same. Everything's good. We can strafe. But now if I take this compass and I rotate the compass itself, it will turn. So all we need to do now is match up this compass with the camera, right? Or however else you want to do it. Maybe you want to just base it on another input. You could do that too. So I'm just going to use, say, get rotation of the camera, right? And we could do whatever, and we're going to set rotation right? So because we're dealing with rotations, it might be better to do the quaternions. They're better. All right, just like that. So just with that now, if I turn the camera, we have the characters wanting to turn and face that direction. Right now, see, it's a little jarry there with the animations. Oh, we have some issues there. Right, and that's and that's due to we're getting this negative rotation and we're setting it in. But really, if you look at the rotation, like watch the value of it. Right, see how it's kind of jumping all over, and if as we turn, it gets up high. Right, so lots of times what you'll do is you'll come into these arcs and you'll say, you know what, to walk forward, maybe instead of negative 0.5, go like negative 25, you know, and 25, right? Negative 25 and 25. You know, and that will help bring that down a bit. Right, see how it seems a lot nicer. And if I want to strafe, I can still strafe. Now I'm not doing the rotation anymore because I'm going into a different state, right? But I can strafe forward and backwards, and I can, you know, spin and chase things and do things. Now the strafing feels a little slow, right? That horizontal. This guy, so I'm actually gonna bring him down to none. I don't mind the vertical having a nice ramping effect, but the horizontal was a little messy. It feels a little better there. Right, and then really, I mean, if you wanted to limit that as well, you also could put in some more conditions here, saying, you know what, if rotation is greater than, you know, no, it has to be less than, say, 45. You know, and if rotation here, I mean, like you can add some stuff, right? Like rotation here would have to be less than negative 45, or you can go less and greater. You can actually put two conditions in there if you want. So it has to be within a certain range, right? Because now if I'm trying to strafe, I can't strafe. I'm trying to, it's not letting me. But once I messed up the one on the left. Oh no, there it goes. So the rotation needs to be less. No, it needs to be greater. Sorry. Yeah, because now if I'm turning, okay, well, 45 might be a little much. Let's go 15. Right, because now I can turn, but if I start wanting to strafe while I'm turning, it won't actually let me strafe until I kind of come within a range. And then if you want, you can add it for going back too. So if it goes too far out of range, he'll go back into the turning, right? Like if rotation is greater than, we'll say, 45, come back over here, and same here, only rotation is less than negative 45, right? Because if you're going left, you're dealing with negatives. If you're going right, you're dealing with positives, right? Because now, like I'm strafing, but if I turn, oh, no, I messed that up. Sorry about that. Get rid of that. So what you would need to do is make another transition. So you get this double arrow. now you can select them, right? So horizontal is less. The other thing you could do is if rotation is greater than 45, so now it has two ways out, has one way in, two ways out. All right, so you do the same thing here. Make sure to take off the exit time is greater than negative 45. All right, so now we're walking. It's like we're strafing, but we turn. And he wants to go into that rotation. And I probably got to tweak those values out a bit still, so he's not so crazy when he's trying to strafe. But I mean, that's just, it's just an idea. I mean, you don't have to do that. I mean, that's. But the actual walking, like I'm just holding down forward and moving the camera, and he's fine, right? And then if you want, you could always add in extra logic where if your rotation gets way too out of hand, you can do the 180. Right, but I'm not worried about that right now. Right now, the main thing is there's a bit more of how you can essentially. So you know what? I'm going to get rid of that one. I'm just going to mute that one. Get rid of those. But essentially, there's kind of like some nice movement based on the camera using just root motion, right? So it's has a very nice fluent feel. You're not sliding on the ground type of feel to it, right? And then from there, you would just add a capsule collider, you know, a rigid body. Oh, apparently you got to spell it right. All right, have a capsule collider. We go to our scene. We look at our character. Capsule collider looks completely horrendous, you know, and we just bring it up so it matches a little better. We freeze the rotation on those. Well, yeah, well, you can freeze them on all of them, I suppose, but you don't want to freeze the position, right? But now, I mean, if you run in, you build in a grounding system or whatever with raycast or whatever the case may be, you now have gravity as well, and you can swap over and do falling animations and stuff like that, right? Play in there, you can add things to it. This is also where you can put in a collider. If you guys don't know what that does, that does this. I think I've had a few questions on how to set this up anyways. So. As you can see, look at that. Instant wall collisions. Pretty fancy, eh?